Wonderful words of life, on me more of their beauty see. Wonderful words of life, words of life and beauty, teach me faith and duty. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Christ the Blessed One gives to all wonderful words of life. Sinner, listen to the loving call, wonderful words of life. Well, so freely given, wooing us to heaven. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. Sweetly echo the gospel call, wonderful words of life. Offer pardon and peace to all, wonderful words of life. Jesus, only Savior, sanctified forever. Beautiful words, wonderful words, wonderful words of life. 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 Next, we're going to do a song. It's titled He is Exalted. We hope you'll be blessed. He is exalted, the King is exalted on high. I will praise him. He is exalted, forever exalted, and I will praise his name. He is the Lord, forever his truth shall reign. Heaven and earth rejoice in his holy name. He is exalted, the King is exalted on high. He is the Lord, forever his truth shall reign. Heaven and earth rejoice in his holy name. He
exalted, the King is exalted on high. He is exalted, the King is exalted on high. I will praise him. He is exalted, forever exalted, and I will praise his name. He is the Lord, forever his truth shall reign. Heaven and earth rejoice in his holy name. He is exalted, the King is exalted on high. He is the Lord, forever his truth shall reign. Heaven and earth rejoice in his holy name. He is exalted, the King is exalted on high. He is exalted, the King is exalted on high. He is exalted, the King is exalted on high.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, choristers, for that. He is exalted, he is the King on high. So we take this opportunity. In front here, I have chairs for the panelists. I will invite the panelists to come up front and take a chair. Then we will do an introduction. After the introduction, we will have a discussion. As I said earlier, welcome those who are online. I know the church YouTube link is on and up. So those who are following it from online, we also hope you will enjoy. So basically, tonight we want to have experts, professionals speak to us and also speak with us, meaning that it's not a monologue. They are going to share their experiences. They are going to share information, but you will also have an opportunity to engage. If you have a question, you can write the question. You will have an opportunity to ask the question, and they will respond in their area of profession. So I'll be moderating, so more chances are that I'll do a lot of talking. So whenever I talk too much, don't worry. Okay. So if you looked at the flyer, we are talking about health, mental health, relationships, and family. Those are the items we are focusing on. So that is what we'll do. I will invite the president of AMWAG to do the introduction of the panelists.
Thank you so much, Elder Wycliffe. Good evening, all of you. We are so excited to be here at KCC, and thank you for making this chance at least to come. The weather is not so good, but we thank God that He has given us life to be here today. And with me, I have professionals who deal with in the community and beyond, who deal with mental health and family relations, because we have to assist one another, we have to run, we have to educate, and we work together. So I have Dr. Honey. They are going to introduce themselves well when they talk. Then we have Dr. Turo. Then we have a sister, Neri. So they're gonna introduce themselves, and then from there we take over. Thank you so much.
Okay, I believe each one has a mic, so we can start from that side. We self-introduce.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy day.
Happy day.
Happy Sabbath.
I don't think I'm new to almost everyone in here. This is a familiar face to you. But I'm sitting here also wearing another hat that I carry in my professional life. And, but still, again, as a member of the community, as you heard, my name's Aneli Torori. And we are here today to really talk about mental health and the care. So I will not go into much details since you already know me. I will let the others introduce themselves, and then we will pick it up from there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting us to be part of this group this afternoon. My name is Tolu Lokweola. I'm the founder and executive director of Restoration for All, a non-profit where we nurture and empower people by reconnecting them with their cultural heritage. What do I mean by cultural heritage? It has to do with our religion, our spirituality, our culture of love, our culture of kindness. We go into communities to talk about mental health and how we can be culturally connected, especially after the isolation and loneliness caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay. Okay. My name is Richard Oni. I'm also the director of services and training at Progressive Individual Resources in St. Paul, Minnesota. And what we do is also work with families, especially we've been around since 1996. And that was the time there were a lot of influx of immigrants and refugees in Minnesota. And we work with the school system on how for kids to adjust to their new homes as well as their families. And since then, we moved from children to adults. And now we are here. And we've been in this church before. I remember Dr. Ola and myself, we've been in this church a few years back. So we're really excited again to be back here. And we know we are going to come more because what we see here is what we see in other communities, that we need each other's help. And information is power, but it doesn't become power until we use it. And so it's a pathway to power. And it's a pathway for this information to build us together as families. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Those who are online, as I said, if you have any question, you can write it on the chat. Those who are online, I believe we are using the church YouTube. In case you have any question or any comment, just put it on the chat. There will be occasion for me to go through those questions and indeed to go through some of those comments. As you have heard, we are here to talk about mental health. And perhaps the basic question should be, what is mental health? And that's where I want us to begin. So I will invite our sister Nelly to open. What is mental health?
Thank you for that question. Actually, usually when I do any presentation, I like to throw that question to the congregation because I realize I want to hear from your perspective. When you talk about mental health, what does that mean to you? So I think I'm not here to give you the definition, but I want to see what do you understand by mental health. Any few folks that can just
Anybody wants to respond I'll come around with a mic. Who wants to say, what do you understand by mental health? What is mental health to you? I have a mic. Okay, I'll pass the mic. I see a hand behind there.
I'm just going to give a guess that mental health deals with all aspects that affect our minds, all aspects.
Okay, another? Mental health deals with all aspects of our mind.
Yeah, mental health is a person's health condition in regard to psychological, emotional, yeah.
So a person's health, emotionally and psychologically. Another response about what you understand to be mental health? Okay, Nelly, you have heard the response. Go ahead.
That's impressive, actually, because usually when we say mental health, I get to hear about illnesses, diagnoses that we talk. So that's why we want to really be able to understand mental health doesn't mean getting a diagnosis. It's really your state of being, As is it Unia said? It's your state of being emotionally, psychologically, mentally, all, your whole person. So, and then that's when we talk about, we want to really focus on the well-being of someone's mental health, because we don't want to dwell on illness, then it becomes, that's when you see us promoting the stigma. Because then we start looking at illness as something that's different, that is not right, but then we know as human beings, we are bound to get sick. Illness is with us. So we don't want to dwell on the illness. We want to look at what is mental health in terms of well-being. And that is really our state of being able to function fully in all your daily aspects, being able to function within your community. If it's your work, you're able to function. If it's our students, they can function fully at school. So being able to perform your daily functions to your full potential. And really that doesn't mean that it's the absence of a sickness, but you're able to still go about your daily activities even with that. So we just want to make sure that we also substantiate that.
Okay, thank you. Next, mental health.
Thank you so much, Nelly, for bringing that up. All the things they mentioned, I think you added to it by talking about well-being. Most of the time, we forget to add that to that component of mental health. We talk about emotions, we talk about psychological feelings and things like that. What about our well-being? How are we taking good care of ourselves? Dr. Oni and myself, I know we've presented a lot on the 8 dimensions of wellness. When we start talking about spirituality, it's part of our wellness. Some people spiritually, they are not well. It's part of mental health. Intellectually, for some people, it is, an area that is neglected. Occupationally, people are not talking about that. When we bring everything together and look at it holistically, that is what constitutes a good mental health. It's not the absence of diseases, just like Nelly said, and that's the definition given by the World Health Organization. But if we want to practicalize it, we all have our moments. But the ability to get over it and continue is part of having good mental health. I'll leave it to Dr. Oni to continue from there.
Thank you very much. I really don't have much to add to it, but I do know that since we are all cultural beings here, all of us experience some form of mental health. But what I know is, like Dr. Ola just mentioned, there's good mental health, and there's one that is social mental health. And when it's social mental health is when we talk about how do we take care of that. What resources do we need to take care of those social mental health? Now, it is important to know that all of us have mental health, but not all of us have mental illness, which is one of the things that we may not really get into, but sometimes we use them simultaneously, and we want that not to confusing people. And we all know, majority of us are from Africa. We all know what that means. You know, we say I'm not crazy. We're not talking about craziness. We're talking about how do you cope, how do you manage, and how do you navigate your day-to-day activities. In Africa, if something doesn't stop you from performing your activities, you are not sick. And this is the same thing we want to do, what we call preventative. We believe in curative. We have to go and get cured. Today we want to do what we call management. Manage something within your own welfare being. And that is one of the areas we want to address today. And we want to make sure that people really talk about things and ask questions. I know a lot of time people don't ask questions because they think it's not important. All questions are important. And because of our culture, I want us to know that there are some issues that we need to talk about. You know, people may say men don't talk about their own mental health issues. And that is important to know that it has no regard for anybody. We need to really make sure we talk about this afternoon. It's an opportunity for empowerment. So please be empowered after this session. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's a session for empowerment. Now, just to begin the session so that you guys can proceed, how do I know that I have mental health? How would I know that I have mental health? I might self-diagnose and I say I'm okay. You as professionals, what is the diagnosis of somebody who is mentally healthy or who is not? Any of you can take it.
I can go first. So there is a clinical diagnosis and also sometimes self-diagnosis. I know sometimes you look at people and say, this person is crazy with the way the person is behaving or reacting. That is just for the moment. People get over things like that. But when it is prolonged, you know, the person, maybe out of 3 days, the person cannot function for one full day, you know, the person needs a clinical diagnosis. And talking about mental health, just like Dr. Oni said, as humans, we have our moments. We are a product of, you know, the community where we live, the environment, the family where we live. It's all about the context. Sometimes you are triggered by the environment where you are working or where you are living. But when it is continuous and you don't have any more coping skills to really, you know, wake up and say, I want to go to work today. Whatever happens, I'm going to cope. When you are no longer interested in going to that place of work, I think, you know, it has gone beyond the level that you can manage on your own. You need help. That is when you need a diagnosis for them to know, are you depressed? Are you moody? Are you anxious about going to work? What is causing you to be anxious? What are the causes? And then look at the way to treat it. So most of the time, I know, especially with our youth and the children, the kids, younger ones, there is no behavior that does not have a reason behind it. You keep asking, why is this child behaving this way? Have you checked yourself to see or know if you are the one actually causing the child to react? There is an action which will bring a reaction. So we need to look at all this. So for you to say this person has a mental health diagnosis or issue or challenge, what qualifications do you have to say that? Except by observing. Once you observe and you see the person is not behaving, by whose standard? Are you the one that will say, okay, this is the way a child should behave? I was helping my daughter with her assignment about 3 days ago, and they talked about comparing the parenting styles, the lenient parenting and the disciplinarian parenting. A child that is being, nurtured by a disciplinarian the outcome will be different from a parent that is lenient. The mental health or the environment will determine a lot of things for these individual kids. So these are some of the things I really want us to take cognizance of, especially when it comes to family relationship that we are talking about today. How do you build a healthy environment for a child's mental health? These are some of the questions I need us to talk about. It's going to be very interactive. Come up with questions. We are not experts in this, but you are the expert of your own mental health. We just want to exchange ideas and talk about ways we can improve on nurturing a good child to go into the world and be winning. Thank you.
Thank you. Nelly?
Okay, when you asked how do you know if you have a mental health condition, rather, the question again goes, you know yourself best, how you function and how you go about your day, or your family member, your loved one. So again, looking at this from a well-being perspective, you have a child that usually wakes up every morning, gets up ready, they do their, self-care and go to school, perform well. All of a sudden, you're seeing this child is not leaving their room, they're not completing assignments, you're getting calls from the school. That's a red flag right there. So I mean, we've got to be able to understand our loved ones, those that are close to us. We have to start noticing so that you can tell when there's something that is different. Unless we do that, then we will come to notice when they are at a crisis level, when they are now reacting, as Dr. Tolu said. But once we know our loved ones and we start seeing things changing, we will start noticing right away. And then in that case, then we are able to start being more proactive. So in a nutshell, you will get to know when you realize that there are some changes to what has been normal or what you've been seeing as a normal functioning for yourself as a person, or as Dr. Tolu said. One other thing I want to add to that also, we talked about how you respond or react to things. You find you're easily getting agitated. Even a friend where we share things, we can share jokes, but all of a sudden, you don't take no joke. It just spikes you, and before you know it, we are calling, you're throwing names at someone. That is a red flag right there. So we need to be very, very intentional in terms of noticing. Then that way we'll be able to recognize when things are going different for us to be able to intervene at that moment so that we avoid things from escalating.
Thank you. I would like also, if you look around, most of us are immigrants. Those of us who were born in Africa, what was the attitude towards mental health where we came from, and how are we handling it in the new culture where we are?
Well, just like you said, people migrate those behavior here. You can take people out of Africa, but you cannot take Africa out of them. A lot of the issue we have is because of how we view them back there. That is why we don't want that to happen to us here. We self-stigmatize ourselves. And that is one of the important things we need to know, that because of lack of treatment back home, people with mental illness, they are a form of entertainers. People throw stones, so that is one of the reasons why we don't want it to even be closer to us here, because of that experience back home. And that is what we call environmental trauma. Because of that back there, you are still being traumatized, you carry it here. And so we need to know that you are in a different world now. You are living in two worlds. And so you need to know what this world is doing and how can you now look at it differently. And I know a lot of us are working in healthcare. Back here, working in group homes, we don't have that back in Nigeria or in Kenya, but we are doing it here. Why? Because you learn to adapt. And so the same thing here. Why are we talking about it now? Because we still believe that we migrated our mindset, that people with mental, we cannot differentiate between mental health and mental illness. The people back there have mental illness because of lack of treatment. But we want to do something here to prevent that type of things or behavior that you see back there. Now, Dr. Ola mentioned that no behavior comes in isolation. Something triggers something. And all behaviors are a form of communication, if you look deeply. And so that is why we cannot ignore our children's behavior to say it will go out. Boys will always be boys and girls will always be girls. That mentality needs to be discouraged. And so the question is, why is it here now? It's because of that self-stigmatization. We need to get out of that self-stigmatization and look at what is happening here. And that is why we are not taking advantage of the resources available, which we will talk about too later.
We talk about the resources. We want to link mental health and family relationships. How do they interact? How do the mental issues we have interact in our families? Because it is mental health vis-a-vis family relations. Anybody can take.
Okay. When we talk about mental health and family relations, we can only nurture what we have by modeling it, first of all. And we know our children, we can talk as much as we want to, but if we are not modeling it, we're just wasting our time. Because first, kids mostly learn by observing. So as parents, if we are not modeling what we are trying to preach to our children, we are wasting our time. That's why, as ourselves first, we should be the first role model, teacher, and the support that our children will need for their own mental health or mental wellness. And once we do that, that's why it's very important as parents first to have the right state of mental health so that their well-being is well enough to be supportive to the whole family. Otherwise, if we don't, then actually that is going to affect the whole family. And we can only do that first by, as parents, minding our own mental health. I know as parents, especially speaking as immigrants, we like to hide things under the rug. We like to mask symptoms. By the way, I just want to say that we all have some form of, nobody is perfect. You say that nothing bothers you. You don't go through a situation, because we face crisis at times. How we handle it, especially in front of our kids, is what's going to build resilience in our children. So we need to be able at all times to be mindful of the young ones that are around us and what we are modeling before them. And as well, we have to fill our cups. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So we need to fill ourselves in terms of staying healthy, our habits that we're exposing our children to. Those are the ones that can keep those relationships healthy as well. Because even before we sit around the table to talk about healthy relationships, first of all, we gotta model them as parents.
Thank you. Also, you can have a take.
Thank you. Nelly said some of the things that I wanted to touch on, but I want to add to what she has said, that the family is the social unit of a community, of the society. Anything that will happen to a child in the real world starts from the family. So why is it always a toxic? Why is there always a toxic relationship in a family, especially as immigrants? One thing I have noticed, I think, is more around the cultural clash, the culture of our country of origin and the culture of our country of destination. It's so difficult for some people to adapt or adopt some of the behaviors here. For those ones that are good, the behaviors that are good, for those kids to pick them up, they need us in the family to pick it up. For those ones that, they see in their schools, we need to learn more about it and be able to talk to them about it and the reason why it's not good for them to imbibe such cultures. But most of us, as parents, as caregivers, we are very, very impatient. You cannot correct a child in anger. The result will not be too good. You need to correct in love, but you need to do your groundwork too, because they are curious learners. A child will ask you, why are you telling me not to be this? Why are you telling me not to do this? You need to take your time and do the groundwork. Once you sow that seed, or the knowledge or the understanding into them, they are going to live with it for life. So we need to take our time. We shouldn't be too busy. We should prioritize whatever has to do with the family. The reason why I'm talking this way is not because we are the husband, that we have, a model family. We have tested, all these things we are talking about. There are theories that supported it. There are evidence-based practice. They have become best practices. But most people, just because they think it's a white person that came up with this model, is somebody else that have tried it. It's not going to be applicable to me. We need to take our time and learn how we can improve our family relations. We are talking about kids alone. Are we talking about the relationship between spouses, husband and wife? Sometimes it's as a result of the relationship between a man and a woman that a child will come out, with behaviors. I've done a lot of assessment for kids that they've taken to residential for residential treatments. When you assess them, they will tell you things the parents will not tell you, So you need to know the needs of a child, of a wife, of a husband in a family, and the strength that they have to meet all these things. Sometimes some people lack the strength to meet the needs in a family.
I just want to add something to that. Hello? Okay. And family and mental health. When we do that, mental health is a family issue. Just like any other illnesses. When you have cancer, when people have diabetes, those are family issues. So also, mental health is also a family issue. And that is why when it happens to someone, we need to make sure we get the support, as well as the churches. It is important sometimes. I've seen some people, when they end up in psychiatric ward, we don't see people going there like when they have cancer to see them. So church has some responsibility also when it comes to that, because we said church is a family. So mental health is a family illness, and we cannot separate that from anyone. It is important also to know that when we talk about those kids, I always kid around to tell people that all the kids born here, I call them ABC, American born confused. They are so confused that you cannot add more to their confusion. It is important that you adults need to look at those things and say, look, they live in two worlds, and people will just undermine those kids and say you cannot be depressed. You have roof over your head, you have room house, you don't pay for anything, but you don't know how many times they are bullied in schools. And when they come back home, nobody asks them, how was school today? You don't know how many kids bully them and say something negative about them. And so they get confused as if their parents don't really care. And so we need to take a look at this. We cannot let those kids, ABCD kids, that they are just confused. So you give them information today, they go to school, they get different information. So they are confused. My mom tells you, I remember when my kids were growing up, I said them something about the homework. They said, no, that's not what the teacher told us. I said, hey, I know more than your teacher. I'm not a teacher, though. So they come home to tell you that. I'm sure many of you have experienced that. So that is why we look at mental health as a family issue that we all need to deal with. It's a church issue as well. And so the church needs to give all the support they can give to someone that finally broke down because they just cannot help it again. And we know, even in the Bible, there's so many verses that talk about mental illness and how we need to take care of those people too. So, your question, yes, mental health is a family issue, and that is why it affects family. Especially if parents are so sick, they have depression, they cannot even go for their medication. How can they take kids to school, or how can they pick up kids from school? So you can see now, sometimes when adults are sick, your children feel really bad, because not because you are sick, but because you cannot do things with them again. And so they feel like my mom cannot help me now. So they feel bad. So we need to know that when you have certain things going on in your life, kids can sense it. Whether you told them or not, they can sense it. And that is why we need to be careful in how we carry ourselves and let the kids be aware of those. Thank you.
Just to add to what Dr. Oni said, especially to talk about us as immigrants and the stigma that we see around mental illness. We know that stigma is born out of fear, and fear is born out of ignorance. So it's really necessary for us to educate ourselves. I know when we recall our days back home before we got to know more about mental health and mental illness, we actually really used to demonize people that have mental illness. I remember growing up, sometimes you just get water and just pour at them, make fun of them. But now that you know better, you need to really show compassion, understanding that mental illness is just like any other physical illness that needs treatment. So even as family units, when we are home, if a child comes to talk to you, we need to listen. I hear a lot from our children or youth who say, our parents don't even listen to us. They don't even have time. I think we have to create time. We have to be very intentional in terms of listening, not listening with the intent to want to respond back, but the intent to understand. So once you understand, then educate yourself to understand what was that all about if you don't know. That's why I talk sometimes about mental health literacy. Do we know what that looks like? If you know, then what do you need to do about that information? And how can you use that information to be able to alleviate somebody else's pain, whether it's mental health symptoms or it's just another physical condition? I know we are always good with our physical conditions, where if you're having, you're having a headache or something, we are quick to go see a doctor, or your child, you take them. But if it's something to do with our emotional well-being, we just kind of tell them it should be okay. That's a signal for calling out for help. Not necessarily to take them to be diagnosed, but just to be able to start monitoring and seeing how it's progressing so that we are able to intervene. It's actually early intervention that can prevent most of the serious persistent mental illnesses that we see. So that's why it's very important for us to be more proactive than waiting until someone is in a crisis and then we start reacting at that time. Yes.
Somebody has a question?
Where I grew up, we used to say that everybody has some level of mental health issues. It's the degree that matters. So how can I know that I have mental health? Let me use the word we use. How can I know I'm crazy? Because I don't know if
What level?
because I don't want to make it because when you translate it from those of you who grew up where I grew up, we say everybody is crazy. It's the degree that it differs. So that's that's a direct translation from the language. So how can I know that my level of craziness needs attention or needs help?
I think, Pastor, we respond to that while you are not here. It's really being, oh, you can't hear me, sorry. First of all, you say that, how do I know that the level is beyond the normal level, right? So you're a pastor. When you find you don't even want to read your Bible, you don't want to do what you've been doing, your normal duties that you've been enjoying doing, going out meeting friends, playing with your kids, all of a sudden you just don't want to do any of those activities. That is a red flag. There's something amiss here. So the level continues to increase the more you withdraw from social functions, things that you used to do. To an extent, if you don't seek help, then it gets to a point where now you have actually even to be hospitalized. So that's why once you start realizing that you're withdrawing from things that you would normally do with no sweat on an instant, then that's when you want to act on those, whether it's feelings, and also what thoughts are coming to you. You may find, you are a very positive person with a positive outlook to life, but all of a sudden everything is all doom and gloom. You just have no joy. You've just lost any excitement. That's when you want to question what is really going on. If you just don't have answers, then find someone who can help you. Put some meaning to those thoughts. Because we all sometimes need someone to hold our hand to explore those feelings, what we are going through.
Okay. So we seem to be that we have a problem. We seem to be agreeing that mental health is an issue within us, especially the migrant. This is an issue, perhaps we have been keeping it under the carpet, but now it is above the carpet. How can we find help? Anybody can respond. What are the resources? Where are the resources? Because it's one thing to know you are in trouble. It's one thing, it's another thing to call 911.
Maybe I can go first. From my experience, I noticed that a lot of people, they are looking for solutions where there is none sometimes because they have refused to seek help, at the time they need to. By the time you call the crisis unit or the 911, even the case of anybody you are calling 911 for might not have gotten to the level where you need to call 911. And then they take them to the hospital and they are there under watch for 24 hours. And then they started labeling them. But sometimes, I know it's always good for us to follow. It's a process. Keep looking out for the signs. When you think this is what you've been seeing over time, there is a need for you to start looking at resources in the community. For example, we've talked a lot about this and we've done a lot with our faith-based leaders. They are always the first point of call. But sometimes they don't know the signs and symptoms. We spiritualize everything that has to do with people's mind, body, and soul. No. Sometimes prayers will not work for some things. It's just for you to talk to someone, advise the person, and then tell them to seek further help to know what the diagnosis is. I'm not saying prayer is not working. I know it works. And this reminds me what happened to my daughter about 5 years ago. I traveled to Nigeria, and she's deaf. So she got to school. Her birthday was coming, and she was expecting me to come back and attend her birthday or organize something for her. So just because, there was nobody to talk to, she was having that feelings, will my mom come back? And then she started misbehaving in school. And they had to call 911. I had to call on Dr. Oni. He saw Dr. Oni and, he just did as if, this is not the person I'm looking for. I need my mom. And that very day, I changed my ticket and I came back. I got back and everything became normal. So what I'm saying in essence, sometimes, kids, you can't read them all the time. You need to go in depth. You need to go a step further with them. Ask questions, not in anger, not in annoyance. Be patient with them. They are our kids. We need to be patient with them. Know what is going on before you start seeking resources. Don't wait till things, just like Nelly mentioned, we wait till the last minute. We use cane, we use punishment, consequences, until those things are no more working, and then we start seeking for help. We ought to have gone to initially to seek advice or probably look for more help. So I'm not saying it's wrong to look for resources or help. There are so many resources around prevention and promotion of mental health. Prevention and promotion of mental health. When I came to the US, I know Dr. Oni was doing a lot of treatment and rehabilitation, but just because I have a public health background, I said, let us introduce a component of prevention and promotion. Let's have more activities to build people's resilience. Let's give them enough, materials they can really dip their hands into and use. And I know Dr. Oni can talk more about that. That has been working. I have my moments too, with my kids. And I have to call him and say, please, what should I do in this situation? This girl is losing it right now. And he will tell me, just be patient. Two people cannot be hungry at the same time. The result will not be good, So these are some of the things we need to know. Resources. Everyone in our community, you are an asset. We refuse to know that. Community, we have a lot of people that we can talk to. But Dr. Oni can talk more about that, the reason why people are not willing to talk to people from their community about their situation.
Thank you very much. And I think Nelly will take care of that later too. But I would just mention that our culture dictates when do we need to see someone and whom do we need to see. That is cultural. And I think a lot of times those are the things that drive our resources out there. I can tell you now that there are resources out there, but will you go there? Because our culture dictates that. Dictate to tell you who is sick and who is not sick. And that is why it is important you are aware of your illness before you look for resources. A lot of times we do this thing, it's not a matter of using this as a treatment center, but it's awareness that when you know you have diabetes, that will tell you what type of food you need to eat. The same thing with cancer. So all those things, resources are within you, like Tutu said, is assets. You have assets, and you need to use those assets. We can tell you we have NAMI, which is National Alliance of Mental Illness. In town here, they do different training for families who have mental illness or school system. So we have so many people like that. But I want to go back to our culture, because this culture is so strong in us that dictates those things. And I think we also need to use our own resources. Nelly is within your community here. He's a resource person that you can use, but I know our culture also dictates, because we have this gossip syndrome that will not allow us to go and see the same people that knows us. You see, if you come to me, yes, I'm from Africa, but there's some other basic thing that Nelly may say, watch out for this, because this is how we do this here. It is important that those resources may be as good as yourself. So to come here and give you list of resources is okay, but remember now, I mentioned this culture. It's so strong in us. It dictates what we do, what we eat, how we eat it at the same time. And so we can tell you more of those resources individually or collectively. You have the county, Hennepin County is all there for you. They have mental health units there. They have public health units in that place. There are many things here. I think they have Center for Victims of Torture, even though sometimes people don't go there because you are not tortured. You are resilient people. And so, but again, we can talk more about that. I just hand up to Nelly.
So we're talking about resources. First of all, as parents or your family, you're your first resource to the individual that needs the support. That's why the social support, that first, your family is first the safety net for that individual. So you really need to be there for that person. And your outlook towards whatever that person is presenting, if it's a mental health issue and that person is in a crisis, how are you dealing with it within the family? That's why it's really important for us to educate ourselves about symptoms and how they manifest, so that we are able to, even when you're calling for help, you're able to articulate to the person, if it's on the phone, what is really going on. We've had our young people being misdiagnosed because of lack of being able to articulate what is going on. Sometimes you find the parent, we just generalize. Oh, I think this person is just crazy throwing things. We, as we talked about mental illness, if you look at the DSM-5, which we call the psychological Bible that they use to diagnose, they look at a criteria. If you misinform of one, it may lead to a different direction. So we need to be very, very careful in terms of how are we noticing the person presenting those symptoms, so that you can help for someone to get the right diagnosis, to be able to get, if it's a need for medication, to get the right medication. We go to the doctors, let's say your pressure is high. They will give you one medication, then you have side effects. They will discontinue and give you another one. Same thing happens with psychological issues. You know, when you're seeing a psychiatrist, they may give you a prescription, it doesn't work out. Instead, it elevates the symptoms, so you go back. So we need, at all times as a family, first of all, to be there for a loved one, to really see how this condition is progressing and how those symptoms also are manifesting. So as Dr. Oni said, we come from Africa, and most of us came here before we really got comfortable to the system of mental health issues, right? But now here, we are seeing mental health conditions left, right, center, within our homes, even within ourselves, you know? So you want to be able to get someone that you can connect with. So don't feel bad to seek therapy. By the way, therapy is healthy. It's not about the disease. That's why I say let's not focus on the disease versus I need my well-being to be in check. I have seen a therapist, not because I was sick, but sometimes you find you're juggling so many things. You just need someone to slow you down. Like, Nelly, I understand you're very busy. Hey, because even as a therapist, sometimes we need someone to remind us. You know, even doctors seek help. So let's not shy off from seeking help. And seeking help doesn't mean you're helpless, doesn't mean you failed or you failed your children. Actually, if anything, you're being very responsible to make sure that you want to get your child or yourself or whoever that you're trying to refer for that help before it escalates. We've seen people having psychotic episodes. Those are actually prolonged and untreated mental health symptoms. So we have the opportunity to intervene early. And we can only do that if we start promoting mental wellness and also having people normalize seeking help for mental illness.
Thank you.
Okay. Why is mental health such an important discussion? It's important because 1 out of 5 adults or family member experience mental health issues. And that is why this is so prevalent, enough to talk about this. We know this has been going on, but after COVID-19, the prevalence is higher again. And so when we sit down here talking, don't think we are wasting our time. It's very prevalent in the community. And that is why it is important that we talk about it. If 1 out of 5 adults, whether it's you, your family member, or a friend, that is what we consider 1 out of 5. That, to me, is very high. That require attention. And I'm happy that the church and the organizers are bringing this because it's very prevalent and we need to take care of it. Now, we talk about psychotropic medication. Back home, I remember, I have a family member that was a nurse, even though my uncle was a nurse and passed away. If people come to him and no medication or injection, it's not a good doctor. But we come here and we overland those things that we don't want to be giving medication. Back home, that is what we rely on. We self-medicate. That is why a lot of time back home, there's no prescription. You can buy it on the counter or on the street. So why now that when they give it to you, you say, oh, I don't want to be overdosed. Well, again, I'm not advocating for this, but those are the type of things that I'm talking about. That your migration here makes a difference. Remember now, mental illness, if we have to go deeper on talking about this, we know that we have 3 areas of migration that talk about mental illness. Your preparation to come to this country, that part alone is stressful. When you depart to come here is another issue. And then when you come here to settle, so all those 3 sets of migration system is a form of mental illness for everyone. And some of you, not to mention, if you fight for different systems to stay here. So you come here, you learn a new language, you learn a new work ethics. Back home, some offices, it's like party time. You just go and visit. Over here, you clock in and clock out. So this alone, your work matters to your well-being. The type of work you do matters. And you know some work lend themselves to so many over time because of more money. Well, not all money is good money. So we need to think about those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we want to come to the audience. Anybody who has a response or a question, we will give this opportunity. There's an echo, so if your mic is on, you can turn it off so that. So we'll take two. Elder Evans, then.
Yeah, thank you so much. You have really touched us greatly. You said about ABC, that is American-born children. The kids that we brought from back home, and what we teach them at home, what we teach them at church, the school undoes. It removes the message. And these children, they call us African parents. Probably the food we eat, the way we dress, the way we interact, the way we do other stuff. And because we're immigrants, probably we spend more of our time probably at work to make ends meet. And now there is a tendency that when these children, they start having the gadgets, that's the phones and computers, they lock themselves in their rooms, probably the entire day. You know, sometimes if you have tough regulations, they only come out when they're eating, and then they go back to their rooms. So sometimes we don't know our children well to study on the kind of episodes. Probably either we are not at home, we are so busy, and you get that we don't study and realize either they have mental health because they are locked up in the rooms, and especially when they do well in the school, they tell you, you know, I have good grades. There is no need for you to ask me to interact with others. So probably they are on the gadgets. So how can you help us or advise us on what is supposed to be done that these kids can be able to be interactive the way we grew up? You know, we grew up, not that you can write to your sister who is next to you, that bring me water to drink through a text, but you are in the same room. How can you help us to move forward?
Thank you. I'll take another one before they respond.
Yeah, my question concerns the parents that were brought here. Most of the panelists there have said that if you see somebody who was withdrawn from doing the things they used to enjoy doing, that means that's a red flag. So now there's these parents who were brought here who stay in the basements. They don't, you know, go to milk the cow that they used to milk back in Africa. They don't go to the market. They don't have friends that they can visit. So what's your advice to us who have brought these parents here, because they are equally vulnerable to mental health issues, just like any other group? It happens a lot that our parents don't enjoy. They're here, they are in the houses as we go to work, but they stay in the house all day doing nothing, especially during winter. How can you advise us to watch over these parents that were brought here who are equally vulnerable to mental health issues as everybody else?
Thank you. You can take those two questions before we take more.
Okay. So to address the first question first around our children, you know, first of all, there's what we want to accept about developmental ages. We know there's an age where our kids really, you're their worst enemy. And that's okay. As long as they still that respect, you understand that that is a psychological stage that we are going through. I mean, developmental stage, so that you don't take it personal and then aggravate it to a different issue instead of understanding. And again, I always want us to educate ourselves to understand, is this something normal? Is this developmentally appropriate for this age group? Because there's that stages of development where our kids really want nothing to do with the parents. But it's still, even at that point, you as the adult, you still want to do your due diligence. Show love to that child. Still be present for them, so that whenever they want to talk, they have someone to talk to. and keep checking in. When they come in, check, is everything okay? They can just say, yeah, they walk away. That's okay. You've done your part. But if you also take a cold shoulder, then they might read that differently, that you don't care about them. So as parents, we still have to continue being available for our young ones or our youth, even when they are going through, their shenanigans of ages and friends being the most important part of their lives. But we also want to see what could be developmentally appropriate and what may not. Because if it's about peers being who matter to them versus adults, parents, but then you don't even see them with peers, then there's a problem there. If they're isolating by themselves all the time, they are not grooming, your kid don't even want to take showers, there are things you can see. So again, we need to be able to notice our kids' behaviors and how they are presenting them so that we can start having those conversations and be able to get them help as soon as we can. But as parents, I know, coming from Africa, there are times we just minimize things. But here now, as you heard Dr. Oni say, the American born confused, we have to be there to try and understand this confusion of theirs. Our kids are going through a lot at schools. In fact, they go through a lot. And I would ask you to be very, very intentional around asking your kids how they are going through at school. They may come home now, want to talk about it, but find ways of just, be curious. How are they going through the school? Because racism is real. We know there's bullying. There's a lot that goes on. As parents, and I find most of us who grew up back home, I find our resilience level to be a bit different. And, but our kids here, they don't know what to do with that. And if you've not created that safe space at home and created that relationship, they might actually even be cutting in the bedroom without you knowing and then hiding the scars, because that's a mental health symptom. A mental illness symptom when you see a child is cutting. But they do that because it gives them the relief from the pain they are going through. So it's very important to be able to recognize if you see scars on their bodies, you ask, hey, where did you get that scar from? Don't just take any answer like that. Just notice, do you see another one and another one? Because they do that. So it is very important to be able to recognize that. And again, we need to start changing our messaging, our cultural messaging around mental illness. Let's not be able to demonize someone who is mentally ill. It's not of their own making. It's just that, you're going through a hard time and you're needing some extra support to help you cope with what you're going through. That is when we need to be close and ask the kids how we can be there. Even if they don't want to talk to us, ask again. If you need anything, I'm right here. Sorry. So maybe I'll let you guys answer the first one, then we'll respond to the second one.
Okay. So the first one is about when kids start isolating and, they want to be alone. Just like Nelly rightly said, that is the time we need to really, discuss with them and know what is going on. It might not be with the home situation. It might not be something that is personal to the parents or any members of the family. It might be what is going on in school. Or, it's a matter of the mind. That is what it is. Someone bullied me today. They start thinking, why am I less? What's wrong with me? I remembered years ago, my son had cancer. And I took him to Italy for 1 year. And there is this white Italian boy. He will always come to my son and, do this to his skin to see if it's going to come off, and he will look at it. That was very disturbing for my son. When I noticed it, he was not talking about it, but, I noticed, and I started talking about it. So you need to start doing that to him too, to see, because he's white, you need to see if his color skin will come off too. And he stopped doing it. And the boy is 24 now. He owns his cultural identity in a way that I expected him to. If we don't have the right solution to any problem they bring, we need to pray for the guidance of the Holy Spirit to help us. Parenting, I tell people, you cannot get a certificate for it. You say you have all what it takes to parent a child, especially an African child who was brought to this country to start imbibing another person's culture. Even you as a parent, when you drive, you curse. You can't do it here. And you adapted to that. Why can't you understand how difficult it is when you are asking them to change 360 degrees? It has to be gradual. Nelly said something that I want to really piggyback on, and that is about changing the narratives around the way we talk about mental health and suicide prevention. We have to keep learning. We can't be coming for this type of training once in a year. It has to be ongoing. It's a lifelong learning. Even when the kids are doing okay, there are some things you really need to check out for. My son is doing very fine, but I need to caution him on, how he's setting his dream. He got his master's degree at the age of 23. That can make him to, become egoistic or proud. You need to let him know it's a privilege. You got that because you worked hard and God answered your prayer. You need to keep praying to maintain that position if you want to get more opportunities. So these are the things we need to be very practical. So many parents, it's all talk. We don't put what we say into action. We just, we prescribe a behavior. You need to do this. You need to do this. Are we giving these kids the enabling environment to be able to do what we have prescribed? So these are some of the things we need to look at. We don't know it all. I know, I was labeled the black sheep of my family. But, I know what I wanted. There are some kids like that. Then I knew what I wanted and I worked towards it. Why can't you try and believe in them? If a child is telling you, I don't want to be this is what I want to be, ask them the reason. I gained admission into the university to study medicine. I was there for a year. My dad was so happy. After a year, I said, no, I don't want to become a medical doctor again. But I still became a doctor. So sometimes we think we know the script. And we give the script to these kids to act them. We need to be careful. We need to slow down and understand the individual, that child, as a unique being. And we cannot be treating all kids the same way. We start comparing. If you see your friends, if you see your sister, no. Each child is unique in their own way. So we need to keep learning. I'm not teaching you parenting. I know some people, they are grandparents, they are older than me, but something that has worked for me, and we learned in school as a marriage and family therapist. These are some of the things we were taught in school. The theories that we were given. When you apply them, you get to know more about them. Sorry for taking your time.
Thank you. I just want to echo some of those things, to also mention something that those kids sometimes, when adults react to kids' behavior, it is your own frustration that you take on the kids. And so that is one of the things I've been telling some parents, that we cannot be angry with those kids, because sometimes we have to pick our battles. Not all the battles that you bring soldier to help you. You just have to see what part of this behavior is going to affect him negatively or her negatively. If it's not, then pick your battles. When you do, it's like you are just harassing them. Oh, he's come again. So later on, they just have immunity. Whatever you say, just come here and go out here. It doesn't make any sense to them. So at what point do you as parents just don't power struggle? Because I want you to be this. It's overcorrection. When you overcorrect kids, you become a nagging person, nagging parents. We see that going on a lot. And so we cannot nag those parents or those kids thinking that we are teaching them some skill. The moment you do that, you see power struggle. And sometimes I say, what is consistent about those kids is their inconsistency. Today they miss it, tomorrow they get it right. And so why as parents, that's what we do. We are just like medical doctor practicing medicine. Does this one work today? If it doesn't work, change again. So you get to look at yourself and assess the way you come out of those kids so that you don't become a nagging parent, because they will give you names. And you know what? The name you call your kids matters. If you say this behavior, oh, you are just a loser, well, it's going to be losing. And so we get to look at our language. The way you describe your illness also matters. If you describe your illness this way, then you know you're going to get a positive report. So, thank you.
Thank you. Nelly, there is the other question about the parents we have brought here, and we keep them in the house throughout. And when they have issues, is it just part of normal aging, or is a problem?
I'm going to take that before Nelly goes out to take that.
Okay, go ahead.
And that, you know, just because we know the cultural differences, the context is different for these parents. And as they're getting older, there is a tendency for them to forget things. It's not part of normal aging. It's a disease called dementia. And I want you to know we have a project that is ongoing where we are educating the community and the caregivers. If we bring anyone to this community to educate you, just because we know the importance, we make it, you know, we give something for your participation. If it's, you know, gas card, just for you to come and listen. Don't normalize memory loss for these parents. It's not part of normal aging. And sometimes they are familiar with the environment where they are coming from. And they want to take a stroll, maybe during summer, and they don't know their way back home. Yes, it's possible, because all the houses look very the same. But we need to be careful and understand how their memory is working, ask them questions, and don't isolate them. So many people bring their parents here just for them to give the kids to them to take care. No, you can make money out of that. You can turn it into a business where you use it to build generational wealth. When people are making money, their brain will work very well. Am I lying? So if you bring them to care for your kids, pay them to do it. Don't think it's because it's my mom. Let them get something for it. That's going to, you know, it's going to be something they look forward to doing. It's going to help them. They won't start thinking about going back, you know, to their country. And then let us create the opportunity for them to exercise. I was a bit surprised when they were singing the other time and nobody was dancing to it. When I go to my church, it's an opportunity for me to do exercise because I dance. Yes, when I hear the drum, that's enough for me for the week, every Sunday. Please, let's incorporate cultural fitness for these people. At home, put music, let them move their body, walk up and down, you know, instead of them to sit all day long. Thank you.
Okay. I really want to speak about our mothers, our elderly here, because they're very near and dear to my heart. Because I've really had some interactions with some of them. And sometimes the stories you hear, they're really heartbreaking. Because we bring them here, they come to babysit our kids, we assume that's it. We need to care for their well-being as well.
Sure.
They are not here for you to take doubles and triples, you make money, you continue building back home, neglecting them here. Back home, they were very active. They had things to do.
Yeah.
You've got to create something here for them. Other than what Tolu said, yes, please pay them. You may not put them on an hourly wage, but at least pay them for what they're doing. They are not just here for you and your husband to take vacations, you leave her or him, whoever you know is caring for your kids. Then you come back, go back to work. Then what have you given her? I've even had others, you know, our mothers mostly, we have these conference lines that they like to listen to because they speak in our language. Please encourage them. I've had others who take the phones from them instead. That, oh, you're wasting time on those. Trust me, that is their antidote. Like, that's what gives them joy. As long as the kids are safe, the kids are fed, they are, you know, they can watch the kids, let them also do what they enjoy to do. And also, when you're going to the store at times, just tell them, let's go. Walk around, let them move, their bodies to move. than just sitting in the house.
Yeah.
You know, try to make the environment as beautiful for them here in as much as it's not back home.
Yeah.
And during summertime, get a small garden, let them go out. There is something to do with nature. I don't know if you know. Sometimes when you're walking, take evening walks with them, it releases some neurotransmitters that gives them, you know, it brings joy before they come back home. Let's not just assume that because they are home, there is a TV and kids can be stressful.
Sure.
Even as parents, you get tired of your kids sometimes. You're like, ooh, I need a breather. So let's consider what we can do with our parents or whoever your caregiver is for your kids, and be very intentional around how am I treating them. On Sabbath, make sure they are coming to church as well. Give them time to socialize with other mothers, other grandmothers here. Like here, I know there's a room back there. Allow them time to socialize, to touch base. And also during, buy them phones to talk with their family members back home. Like put them on this schedule where they know that I can also call home. I don't need to hide to talk back home. Like allow them also to experience life to their full potential under your roof. Then they'll be glad to watch your kids. And then at some point, if they're able to travel home, let them go and come back. Let's try to really give them a good, healthy environment that will boost their health as well. And that goes now to what Tolu talked about, dementia. We know dementia, and many times I know it wasn't very known to our community. And we find folk, by the time we get to know about it, it's way at the late stages. It's good to know if your parents are forgetting things, is it because, you know, right now, with COVID, I know many of us, including myself, sometimes I forget, you know, because there's just so much sometimes that's going on. But there's that forgetfulness that you need to worry about and be curious. If it's, you know, consistent, you're seeing they're forgetting things that they used to know. Again, we need to be able to see and recognize what they are doing, if it's a normal pattern, how it's developing, so that we can have them assessed as well. But please, let us make our parents or our caregivers, give them the space where they can also thrive.
Thank you. We want to take another set of questions or reactions as we start winding down. So, I have one question here. Do we have another question? Okay, Dr. Do you have something to say about our parents, how to take care of them? You will keep it. I will take the question so that we'll answer them together. Yes.
Me, I have a question about couples. That as couples, we being married in Kenya or having married here, you find out that the way roles are modeled from our community is very different. So for instance, it's known that babysitting is a job for mothers, and fathers are supposed to provide. But when we come to this country, life is very different. Yeah. So you find out that if we have children, I'm going to work, and we can't afford to have a full-time babysitter in the house, so we have to alternate, take shifts, taking care of the kids. So when I go to work, I expect that. And I don't know if it's me, but I think that the tendency that ladies adjust very fast to the new environment. So when I go to work, I expect that when I come back, things are done. So when I come back, I found out that everything is, my husband is waiting for me to take over from where I stopped. So then you find out I am getting depressed and things are changing. Being a new environment, how can we, and you said for kids, some of them it's 360 degrees. They have to turn to adjust. So for adults, what is the best way for us to maneuver through this system so that we can adjust? Because by the time someone comes to realize that I have mental illness, it has gone way far that it's going to take a long time to come back.
Thank you. Another? You have another question? Okay. I will give it. That's the question. I think it has covered 3 generations. There was about our parents we bring here. Mary is about ourselves. And the other one was about our children. Doc, you can take a hub.
Take her? Okay, well, your question, well, about the parent, you see, we parent, the way we parent back home was good there. Over here is not the best. Especially African fathers. We cannot be drill sergeants here. And a lot of times those kids, they withdraw and not come out because their father just come home from work. And they don't know what they're going to say, especially the girls. You may, boys, African men may say, what are you wearing? This one is too short, this one is too this. So when it comes to parenting, we get to know that the parenting back home and here is so different. You get to learn and unlearn what you learn over there. The way you talk to kids here, you need to negotiate. I'm sure you're going to say, why will I negotiate? I gave him food, I gave him housing, and now he has to talk back to me. Remember what I said? It's American born confused. So you cannot hold them tight like that. The rope has to be balanced. You have to have a balanced rope so that you can balance each other. The kids, for example now, summer is coming, and I know SDA churches, they will have a lot of events for kids. This is the time you start thinking, where would these kids go, especially if they are not kids that can work, maybe little kids, 10 years, or, you know, you need to start planning with YMCA or some activity that you can register them for summer to go and do things, because they need to be occupied. When they don't do that, that's when you see some of the behavior coming out of them. Now, when it comes to this parenting, I think I would leave some part to the women here too, because I can only talk about African men, that we cannot be that drill sergeant. My kids, when they were growing up and their mom traveled, oh my goodness, they have long face, because they know this guy is gonna say something just nasty. I will say, okay, we are going to school now, you cannot forget anything, because I'm not an helicopter mom. I'm not gonna be flying things back from school, from work. And so they will make sure they pack everything. And you know, and then later I found out it wasn't the best approach. Even though the people don't learn under fear, it becomes fearful to them. So I quickly withdraw from that approach. So that's why I'm telling all the men here now, don't be a drill sergeant. Your kids will fear you and they're not learning anything. It's just fearful. You know, when people fear, they don't learn anything on that fear. And so we need to be careful. When we parent back home, you slap this, you do this. You can't do that here. It will become a child protection issue. Yeah. And we don't want to go there. And so I will pass on to my colleagues here. Thank you.
Okay, I think we are responding now to Mary's question, right? Okay, you know, again, this is where culture comes in. Culture comes in. And I know families differ, so you need to understand your spouse, because there are some who don't mind, you know, switching roles when you're not there. They handle homemaking very easily, take care of kids, do everything. When you come back home, everything is taken care of. And there are others who just can't do it, you know. And that's where I think you need to really negotiate on what is the best approach, not fighting over that, and also to understand these resistance from the man. Where is it coming from? Is it more of the man and the ego and all that? Or is it just ignorance, not understanding that here it is okay to do certain things? So it's a matter of time, having dialogue to find the best way, because these children are yours, both of you. And you have the well-being at heart. So you need to have the dialogue in terms of how do we watch over these kids. If it leans more towards the mother, then the mother will have to be the one to reduce the hours at work to be able to watch kids. So you just have to work, because one thing I've come also to notice, our ladies are completely exhausted because they're the ones that are working so hard. And we have this thing, I think it's a cultural thing, because as a mother, you feel that you have to be the one that everyone leans on in the home. But then we have no one to lean on at times. But I think it's okay sometimes to say, I am really tired, and then your spouse can pick up and assist you. And that comes with understanding for the both of you. It is okay to have someone else to talk to you if you're not able to agree, because I think it's okay. I know sometimes we don't like to air our dirty linen in the public, but if it's causing a lot of friction in the home, you may need a third person to help you put some meaning or sense into what's going on. Because what we want to avoid is really creating a toxic environment in the home for the children. So you need both of you to care about your well-being so that one person doesn't feel overburdened, because at the end of the day, you'll break down. So we want to be very mindful of our duties, what our roles are, so that everything is distributed in an equitable way, and you're able to take charge of your health as well.
Thank you, Nelly, for mentioning that. I don't usually feel comfortable talking about our relationships in marriage, the expectations, and what one spouse is supposed to do or the other is supposed to do. And the reason is because every family is unique. If I tell you this is how I've kept my home for years, you would think I'm a fool. And if you tell me this is the way you've been keeping your home, I might think, oh, why should you be doing that? You are a career woman, you are a professional woman. But I want to say this. The Bible, I think, established it in Proverbs chapter 31, I think, the virtuous woman. I believe so much in that. When you call a woman virtuous, there are expectations. You are the one who leads your home with integrity, discipline, and more. All the virtues that a virtuous woman practices are aimed at making her husband's life better, teaching her children, and serving God. So, if you are a Christian, you should, really look out to the Holy Spirit to lead you on how to lead your home. Marriage is very tasking. For me, if I had a choice, I would have remained single, because you need to invest more if you want to remain married. And that is why I find it difficult to really say this person was responsible for our marriage breaking up. You've done your best. When it's no more working, everybody will go their different ways just to keep peace. But what we are saying in essence is, it takes the virtuous woman to build a home. Something you talked about, you said sometimes when you go to work, you want to come back and see some things done. Did you even talk about that before you left home? Did you ask your husband, can you help with this? You are thinking the man should be spontaneous, take it upon himself to do something he was not doing before. And I'm speaking from experience now. My husband is not here. He comes every three months. The first time he came, the fight was so serious. And then I said I was done. Please go back to Nigeria, and then I'll be here with the kids. But the Holy Spirit ministered to me. You are going to be labeled. Why? They will say it was because you came to America that you are no longer in your marriage. And I said, well, is that what people will say? I will do everything possible to make this work. It was difficult. Sometimes I will be cooking and I will be crying. I'll be saying, I went to the office and back. You are here on vacation, and you are waiting for me to come and make fufu for you. And then I will come back from work and start preparing food again. But after practicing it for maybe months, I got used to it. And he started learning too. He started preparing eba for himself. He will make eba for me full of gari, but I will eat it and I will eat something after, It's all about give and take. So I don't advise people on marriage, but I've seen so many approaches women are using. We are wiser than our husband, though. Whether you like it or not, take it or leave it. I've seen women here in Minnesota. They will check themselves into the hospital that they need bed rest, and they will cooperate with their nurses and leave 4 kids with their husband. And the husband will be saying, please help me take care of her. I hope nothing will happen to her. You need to come up with approaches if you don't want to have mental health and die. And then share with your husband later. When you wanted to kill me, you don't know how to cook eba. You don't know how to cook anything. I need to bring an approach. It's for your mental health. It's all about your well-being. I've seen so many people coming with the approaches. Instead of having to argue all night long, I expected you to wash the plate. When you are washing the plate, break one and say, my hands are so weak. He won't want you to break all the plates. I'll leave it. I will help you with it. So it takes understanding. We need to understand our husband. Don't have too many expectations. Try to change yourself while you are trying to change your husband. Instead of trying to change him, change yourself. It's going to work. It has worked for me. Nobody thought I was going to stay in my marriage for 2 years. I was always packing my things and dividing the kids. You take this, I will take this. After some time, I saw that was not going to work. Because my kids, they started hating me for it. They will all say, I hate my mom. My daughter wrote me a letter. I said, I hate my mom. She's always fighting with my dad. And that was when I had a rethink. If I'm not careful, this will turn these kids against me because my eyes is always red. I'm always nagging. I'm always shouting. But I changed. When we were driving down, I was telling Dr. Oni, there is no situation we cannot change about ourselves. All we do is to change situation about the other. We need to work on ourselves first. By merely looking at you, I think the other person will change. Thank you.
I really enjoy this, even though I'm a man that they're talking about. I'm one of those men. I'm one of those men they're talking about. But at the same time, I really want to say that we African men, we always believe we're in charge. But we are not in charge. Let's be honest with each other. When they are not at home, we are lost. We don't agree to this. I can testify to that too, with my wife too, because one of those things happened. So we are not in charge. We are just hallucinating that we are in charge of something, and we are power struggling, and we can't get it. So we need to really balance our relationship. And a lot of time, it's not that it goes, it's not smooth, and it's not always easy, but it's doable. And we need to remember, though, it takes two to really make it work. If one is off the balance, then we know it may not work. And so we need to really make sure that this happens. Back in Africa, many of our women may not be working, so you go back, you have entitlement to come home and be reading newspaper at that time, over there, but not here. Because everybody is working here, putting in 8 hours. And especially if you are a nurse, you are putting 50 hours. And so we need to know those things. And that is why that equation is not balanced. And we want equity. So please, in a home, we don't have to be fighting for equity. We already need to give it to each other. Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 15 minutes to wind down. Anybody with a reaction from the congregation? Any reaction? It doesn't have to be a question. As I give them a minute also to make their final remarks. Okay, Victor.
I don't have a reaction, but I wanted to speak on triggers, how we can notice our triggers. I think that is important. Myself as well, that's what I'm working on, and I think maybe men, or maybe speaking from a man's perspective, I think that's one thing that maybe we can all work on in any situation. So maybe we can talk more about triggers.
There's a question which is online. I would like to read it so that you will respond to it. The question is, yes, mental health is a family issue. How do I tell someone close to me or a friend that they need help? So that's the question from online. How do I tell someone close to me or a friend that they need help? Okay, I will let one of you respond to that. Then we will start making our final remarks. Doc?
Well, I think sometimes it's what to say, it's not what to say, but how it's been presented. When you find out that a friend of yours have some behavior that you are not familiar with, you know this person for a while, and just of a sudden there's some things coming up, and coming up, and coming up, and you are looking at it that, this is unlike you. So you might, at that point, again, just how you approach somebody makes a difference. I may call you to say, hey, John, you know, we've been friends for this, and is anything going on? At that point, they may say, what did you see? Well, I noticed A, B, C, D, and this is not what you've been doing. And you say, at that time, sometimes people will break down to say, yes, this is what I've been going through. But if you just say, you know what, lately you've been this. Remember I mentioned language. How you use your language matters. And so at that point, you have to come up with an empathetic way of approaching this person. Because this person, again, is shy, stigmatizing himself or herself not to tell you what's going on. But by the time you probe in a very supportive way to say, I've not seen you behaving this way. Is something going on that I can help you with? See yourself as a helper at that time. Don't see yourself as someone that, you know, that you can just do A, B, C, D. So it is how you approach that person. So you need to be empathetic in the way you approach the person. Make sure you give him or her an example of those behavior that you notice that is happening. Because if you don't give him or her an example, he's going to say, what did you see? And if you cannot tell that specifically, then you are not helping the person. So take data of what's been going on and how long it's been taking. Because sometimes things can just happen without, you know, maybe today we just go out and I've just forgotten, I got carried away about something and I said something. That doesn't make me being sick. It's just that, hey, this is not like you, what's going on? You just said ABC. I said, oh, really? I'm so sorry. But if this person cannot say they're sorry, that means something is going on and they would be willing to tell you more. And there are some resources about that, how you can talk to a family member, a friend. Just that it takes time. You have to have a skill to do that so that it don't become offensive to the person. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we can start making our final remarks. We start.
Oh, that's one question.
Okay.
It's a question on triggers.
Okay, Victor had a question.
On triggers.
Pastor, okay, I believe, Pastor, you wanted to say something? Okay, Pastor and Victor.
Oh, I wanted to say, I have seen, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you travel around, you will see the Hmong college integration programs. They have a program for the young people who are getting ready to join college. The Somalis have done that, and sometimes even the Spanish. But I have not seen anything African. There was there's one place somewhere near the University of Minnesota where I see something to do with African. But I don't know if they do anything to do with the community and with young people. I've seen adult daycare centers for the Hmong, for the Somalis, but I have not seen for Africans. These people, they work the same way we do. The same way we work. They care for their children, but they have centers where the adults, the seniors we were talking about, where they can go and spend time, maybe during the day. And you guys work in the government, or you have access to resources, and the organization that you're leading, Patty, is it possible that we can think towards those lines, start programs towards aimed at, you know, where our young people can go, spend time together as maybe Africans or Kenyans or Liberians, wherever they come from? Can we have those centers? Can we have those adult day centers? We have a building here which we don't use through the week. until Sunday, until Sabbath, when the seniors will come and spend an hour or two together. Then they go the whole week because they're busy. They have to take care of your children. Can we have something which can help? I mean, towards those lines.
I think we need to respond to the trigger question first, then we can finish with that. So,
to the trigger, then you can make comments about pastor's question about the resources.
Okay. So, that's a good question, Victor, about triggers. And that's why, first of all, as an individual, you need to really see what your triggers are. And those loved ones also, they need to monitor what your triggers are. That's why, especially with our young ones, when you know what ticks them off, you don't want to push your envelope when you see them escalating. So once you recognize someone's triggers, what really gets them angered, you want to keep off, not to continue pushing for whatever you're trying to. And you as an individual, once you understand and know what your triggers are, you want to also remove yourself. If it's just those around you that are causing those triggers, then you just remove yourself. You can also recognize things that also help you calm down, whether it's going to your room, play some music. And those are some of the coping skills that we usually use, especially people that have anxiety. You know, what calms them down? It's the same thing. What triggers some of your mental health symptoms? So you really need to be able to call them out so that you're able to recognize when you realize that, you know, you're getting those triggers, remove yourself or do what you do to cope with that. So, yep. And on the second question for Pastor, that's a loaded question. And something that probably I didn't mention when I started, I work for the state. And the work that I do really is we are trying to, we are growing providers of color. I oversee programs that provide services to people from a cultural and ethnic minority background. And as you said, I actually funded all those organizations you said. I fund the Somalis, Hmong people, Vietnamese, name them, not Kenyans. These are, at least I know some Nigerians. But I find it something very interesting with Kenyans that we don't support each other. Unless we change that mindset. Note that I've never reached out, because our role also in the job that we do is to outreach out. We have these funds that are going to do A, B, C, D. Because we don't just give you money, you also have to meet the requirements to be funded. And before you do that, there is what we call technical assistance. We try to work with you in terms of what you're able to do. If you're not, then maybe tell you, hey, partner with these folks to do A, B, C, D. But I've seen a lot of resistance from our community, and it's just really unfortunate, especially when we see our young ones ending their lives, knowing that we could do something, but our competition within ourselves cannot allow us to do that. Someone starts something, instead of us supporting them and continue expanding it and adding more resources, instead we want to kill it. Do you understand? So one thing I tell folks, there's funds that can fund all our programs than just wanting to compete with the first one you've seen so that you can kill it. Instead, see, what am I good at? We have AMWAG who are working around domestic violence. What am I good at? Let me bring this. We partner with AMWAG so we can do this in our community. Instead, we want to go after AMWAG, not support them to do well. I think we need to change our mindset on how we operate within our community. And I speak that openly. I have talked about that because I've worked with our communities and I've worked with other communities. I work with all communities in the state of Minnesota. And I've seen how we operate. Until we change that, there's so many resources, there's funds that we can fund all these. I've talked even the other time at Faith Church. How can we come together even as a faith organization? I reached out to your pastor. I talked about the room there, youth center, what do you call it? Youth for Center, something, Youth Center for Excellence. I said, this is a good place you can have during the week where youth can come in and have their programs. We had trainings. I called for folks to come so we could train you. Nobody showed up. And those trainings were paid for. So until we start being intentional, we want to know what is available. But I tended to pull back. I know Jesus was not liked in his own hometown. So I live by that. Because I've tried to reach out like, hey, we can do this. Just like, not just my own community. I'm not just trying to be biased. But I reach out to all communities because I'm charged to reach out to all of them. But when I see that our own, especially our faith community, I remember there's a time we had wanted to buy a building, remember? My excitement was like, yeah, we can have a youth center. But then we looked at who's going to be in charge. We killed the dream before it even started. By that time, we would be done and gone so far. But I tell you, it's not late. So if now we are ready and willing to, we can do it. We just need to put our heads together, because this is not about us. This is about our kids. This is about our youth. And again, how do we build this for other generations coming? You know, so let's consider that and see what we can do and how we can do that differently, so that we can really be there for our community, for our people.
Thank you, Nelly. Well said. You said it all. You know, my closing remark initially was to be that I have come to offer myself as a resource to anyone who is ready. By the grace of God, I think I've just been here less than 10 years, but I thank God for what He's doing. And because I was really out to see what the promises are in the Bible. Life is all about principles. If you say you are going to possess all the land that you step your feet on, and you are competing instead of collaborating, you won't go far. You know something, you are keeping it from others, instead of you to share. Sometimes we think we know it all. You don't know what the other person knows. We started, this presentation in churches. We've gone to a church, and we talked about building generational wealth. Because I saw that whatever we are doing, and we are doing well here, this is a land of opportunities. You can always introduce your kids, your spouse, your children. Everybody in that family can own a family business, especially those ones that the government are supporting. We have support from DHS to support anyone that is doing this family friend and neighbor child care. Your mom is here, is helping you to take care of your child. The state is ready to support them in any way they want. Equip the place they are using, even if they don't have more than 5 kids. But we have all these resources, but the community, they are not ready to exploit it because they think, you are the one getting all the money. That's why everybody wants to start a non-profit. You don't know that when you own a non-profit, just like Dr. Oni will say, you own a business? No, the business owns you. I didn't sleep 2 hours throughout the night because I had to turn in a grant. And you want to have my life? But I'm looking for money for people to be employed. And you pay them salaries for what they are not doing. And then you're not okay with that. That is the problem. People are better off competing than collaborating. If you have a project, we are ready to be part of it. But you want to keep it close to yourself. You don't want people to steal your ideas. If you are the originator of an idea, if anybody steals it, they can't sustain it. So we help people develop their businesses. Dr. Oni will talk more about that. Though we don't advise many people to go ahead and have non-profit because they can't do what it takes. You need to write grants. You need to know how to do fundraising. But if you have a business and you are very, concessions, you are, and there is this other grammar that I love to use. You will make profit from it. There is this Somali eatery where they sell food. I drive from my office 25 minutes to go and buy food there. It's because they are consistent. When you get there, you will meet them. They didn't change their recipes. They all keep doing what they know how to do. Consistency. And they are doing very well. But, sometimes we don't appreciate what people are doing well. We want to do what they are doing. But we don't have what it takes to be that person. You have your own ideas for business. Why don't you share it and then we can advise you where to get resources to do it? That's why these Hmong people are thriving. They have schools. And they're having charter school and everything. A whole church will support them to have school. Universities will support them to have charter schools. Dr. Oni knows much about that and he can tell you more. Let's not compete, let's collaborate. And we are open to collaborating. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is really a good conclusion to this, but just want to mention something about intergenerational wealth, which is, when we talk about wealth, you cannot transfer your 9-to-5 job as a wealth to your children because it's somebody else's job. So 9 to 5 p.m. job is not transferable. So that is why it is important to do things that is transferable. And I think when we talk about that, that is what we mean by wealth that is transferable. Your 9 to 5 is not. And working together is stronger than individually. We are here today because we are working with Betsy that brought us here. Even though when I was coming here, I didn't know what I'm going to do. I'm just here by faith. I just come by faith. I don't know what I'm going to meet. And so Betsy, Nelly called on both of us. And we have been in this church now, I think, twice. So I think this is an opportunity again to share knowledge. Nobody has all the knowledge, but we share it. No originator. Everything is borrowed. We borrow ideas all over the map and make it work. So having adult daycare where the older people can just go for 2 hours when they are not babysitting, that would be a very good one. And church can handle those kind of things. So you have enough rooms around. And so you have program for quiz. All these are doable. But it requires what? Collaboration and trust and consistency. You cannot do it today, tomorrow I find out. No, nobody will do that. Nobody will fund you for temporary service. Thank you very much.
Let me just say one other thing in finishing also. As we talked about, growing our own organizations, actually when you come in as a collaboration, you have a consortium, meaning a group of people, you will be easily funded than when you come by yourself. So I just want to give you that insight. We love collaboration. It's easier because we know that we are reaching a larger pool than you coming by yourself. So one other thing also I was going to mention, we do have the workforce shortage. We are aware of that. So we also have some grants that are looking to support folks that are going into the mental health career field, mental health and substance use disorder. So if you want to add that on, a licensure to that, we have some funds that will support you to get your license. So those are things, because our goal is to grow more providers of color that can meet the needs within our communities of color. So those are some things we need to be aware. In fact, there's so much money that our state is right now in a surplus budget. So that's why we are trying to take advantage. And this is the time that we are really focusing more on the BIPOC. We call them BIPOC, which is really Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So, and there is what we call infrastructure funding, meaning you'll get funds to get you startup funds to start the organization. So just being able to work with those that are already in the field, and also we have technical assistance within the state level so that we are able to start now doing what we should have done years ago, so that we can start really collaborating now and being more intentional. So yeah, you can be supported if you want to be part of the mental health professional, like nurses. If you want to add a certificate to your program, to your license, you can do that. So think about those. There are opportunities for that. Let me know.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I will invite Sister Mary to come. She's in charge of community services and do a vote of thanks. Then Pastor will give us a closing prayer.
What a wonderful program. Good evening once again. I am sure we have learned a lot. On behalf of KCC, I just want to say thank you, Pastor, for letting us have them here, and the board members and everyone. And my Elder Wycliffe, thank you. Sister Betsy, thank you. Together we can go far than us trying to go by ourselves. Thank you, Sister Neri, and your team. I know for sure, I promise that I will be working with you. I want to know where resources are for my community, When I came here, I was on my early 20s. Now I'm on my late 40s. So what is my future plan? I don't want to sit home and babysit like my brother said. I want to be active. And how can we achieve that? Is by having resources right now. We said we were going back home in Kenya. When we came, we are still here. And I don't think we are going to go home. We better make it real. So as a community, as a church, we will want to learn from you, know where we can get resources, what we can start that can benefit us now, and our children can get something to carry on. Without wasting your time, the weather was really bad, but I was watching online, people watched, and there was other activities, community activities out there. It could be more than this. So please, if we invite you, I know it's frustrating driving all the way from St. Paul, but if we invite you, please don't say no. Come. Planting one seed produces a lot of fruits. You don't know what you have planted until you see the fruits later, somebody approaching you and saying, I learned this from you. By it listening online, be it being here, but it's going to produce fruits, I promise. I will invite Pastor to come and pray for us. Other than that, thank you for those who drove in. Thank you, Monari, for coming, and all those the community people came. Thank you, everyone. Next time we have something like this, please don't hesitate to come. Oh, this food, please don't leave. We have food downstairs, and I know there was activities going on in our next door church, Faith Church. Most people went there. So please stay around and let's socialize. There's a lot of food for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Betty. And all of you for coming. Presenters, thank you. I just wanted to say that it's a blessing to have you in our community. You know, it took me a long time to go for my physical because I was looking for an African provider. And I was glad when I met one. So, because when you have people of your own, they understand you better. So I'm glad that we have people we can reach out to. I saw people shaking their heads when they heard nearly that they can, you know, apply for grants and all that. And there are so many things we have in mind we could do, and we want, if possible, that you help us to cooperate with you so that we can do it. To start, you know, a daycare for adults. That's something which not only the church, we can provide the venue, but have, you know, you do it. Because we cannot be expert of everything sometimes. So we have to agree on that the church can, I don't have to be an expert of everything, but let's work together with each other and make use of the talent and the gift God has given to each and every one of you. God bless you, and thank you for your service and for your time. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you that you brought us to this country and you brought us to this point in time where we have to reflect on what is really going on in our community, in our families, and why we are here at this moment. Father, help us to continue to work together and to be united, and especially to work towards helping and supporting one another. Thank you for this afternoon, the program we've had. Thank you for the presenters. Thank you for the organizers, and thank you for everyone who participated in organizing and putting everything to work according to the plan. We thank you for those who have attended and even those who've listened online. And Lord, we pray that you'll help us even in the future, that we'll be able to work together, that we'll be able to pull together so that we can move forward as a community, as a people. Thank you for bringing us to this land of opportunities. And you blessed us and some of us with talents and gifts. And we praise you because they've offered to give, to be a resource for the community without even charging us. We pray that you bless each and every one of them. May you continue to add to them. And may you continue to give them more time next time so they can continue to share with us. Now, as we go and share together a meal downstairs, may you go with us until we meet again. It's our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you, and go in peace. After you're done eating, department leaders, we have a meeting upstairs.